True or false? Being too busy is the most common barrier to movement.
True.
Morning or evening, when do most busy adults succeed with movement?
Morning, but we can talk more about that.
One mistake people make when trying to create or start an exercise routine.
Trying to go too far and too fast when we start out.
True or false? You need long workouts to see health benefits. Hello and welcome, everyone. An exciting, amazing, phenomenal, rapid paced episode today for you. This is your host, Dr. Chhaya Makhija on Hormones and Hope. And today I have a coach. I know you've listened to my own coach who has been so inspiring, sharing her personal journey. But today I actually have a physician coach, a marathon coach for you. And she's coming all the way, it's a virtual one, but she's coming all the way from Northeast Philadelphia, Dr. Michelle Quirk. I'm really, really excited for this one because she is coaching individuals, be it in person or virtually, throughout the nation on someone who is interested in running or who wants to participate in marathon. So from a beginner to someone who is very skillful and needs to up level their game. Dr. Quirk, I know her from one of my business coaching programs, and I've also seen many of the physicians who've been coached by her and how phenomenal they're doing, either with power walks or with running. So I'm really, really excited to know more, Dr. Michelle, from you. And what can we learn about running, about power walking, about how to participate in marathon and up level our health? So welcome to our episode.
Aw, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes, absolutely. So before we get into the nuances of your topic, which is going to be all about running, exercise, and how we align the mindfulness or our intention to our action or our purpose, tell us more about yourself. Like you're a board certified pediatrician, so how did you get into becoming a coach, and what's your passion?
Yeah, well, I'm a primary care pediatrician here in Philadelphia. And I think the most important thing to say about my own running journey is that I was not always a runner. So I was a kid who really struggled with the sport, and I thought that the cross country team was made of some different genetic material than I was. So I feel like the least likely person to be sitting here today, which is a full circle moment. So I came to running really after my pediatrics residency. I went through, I mean, I can describe it now as the time of very, very serious burnout, but back in 2012-ish, we weren't really talking about burnout yet. And so it was just a very tough time. Like I finished my residency, moved to a new place, started a new job, was newly married, like all of the newness of everything. And my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer and passed away like shortly after the diagnosis. And so all of this was happening at once, and I really did not take any time off. I was just stayed on the treadmill, full speed ahead. And I had this moment in the ER one night. I was talking to a patient and his family all about healthy habits and good exercise and getting enough sleep and good nutrition, like things I talk about all the time. And I had this moment of like, you're talking the talk, but not walking the walk, and something really needs to change. And I chose running because it was a low barrier of entry. Like I had running sneakers getting dusty in the closet. And so I decided I was going to go home after that shift, take out the running sneakers, put them on, and go just 5 minutes around the block. And if it felt okay, I was going to go back and do that again every couple of days. And that's how I started running. And I like worked my way up from 5 minutes around the block to the first 5K, the first 10K, a half marathon. And then after I ran a marathon and I thought, if I can do it, anyone can do it. After I came back from that race, I felt like I was a running evangelist, like telling everyone, go run a marathon, it will change your life. And that is how I ended up bringing people along with me on the ride because along the way, I brought my husband, my mother, my niece, various friends and family, and started dabbling in writing training plans for people. And that was really the beginning of the coaching business, but it has grown from there. So I became a coach in 2019 and started Mindful Marathon back then. And now I have kind of a balance where I'm I work part-time in primary care, and then I'm a run coach as well.
Wow. So you self-trained yourself from that?
Well, I did at first, and then I also worked with a coach. So I self-trained for probably about 3 or 4 years, and then I started working with my own running coach when I ran my first half marathon, and I made so much progress, like leaps and bounds, working with my coach, for just a couple of months than I had made in those 4 years before, and it really taught me the value of a coach and really learning the physiology behind the sport. So I credit him with really wanting to, be inspired to become a coach and learn how to do this for myself. And also, all of my own accomplishments in running really have to do with starting to get coached early on.
How impressive. So, Dr. Michelle, just spilling some beans. I don't like running. Like you make me power walk, I would love to. So, I'm curious now that can you convince me to get into by the end of the episode as we're going to get to know more about what exactly you do, coaching, and just maybe the physics and the mindset aspect of it in our deep dive. So it's a great challenge for me. Like what happens at the end of the episode. So let's dive into our rapid fire questions first. These are going to be one word or one liner, and then we get into the nuances after it. So you're ready? True or false? You need long workouts to see health benefits.
False.
Yes or no? Can short, consistent movement be just as powerful as intense training?
Yes.
So, one mindset shift that helps people, including your students, actually start moving, not just think about it.
Something is better than nothing.
True or false? Being too busy is the most common barrier to movement.
True.
Okay, I would love the explanation after this. Morning or evening, when do most busy adults succeed with movement?
Morning, but we can talk more about that.
Okay, morning. All right. One mistake people make when trying to create or start an exercise routine.
Trying to go too far and too fast when we start out.
Okay, so it's for the beginners, right? One simple way men and women can add movement to a packed workday.
Attach it to something else that you already do.
Sweet. Okay. This was a rapid fire, and I have so many questions even before we get into our actual deep dive. In our rapid fire, we talked about, you answered a few things. So how about can you tell us more about the morning or evening? Like when is a better time for a adult or a young adult, and why did you pick morning versus evening?
Yeah. I think this one, it really depends on the person. You have to know yourself if you're more of a morning or evening exerciser. I would say the majority of my athletes do well with morning exercise, but I do have some people who prefer to do it like in the later afternoon, maybe after work, depending on their schedule. The reason I say morning is that sometimes we procrastinate on exercise. And so if we put it in the morning and it gets done in the first part of the day, then we have the whole rest of the day open to us. Whereas if we say, okay, I will just get to it later, I will just get to it later. And sometimes we never get to it. So that's why I would put a little bit of an edge on morning, but it really doesn't matter. The answer is what works best for you that will make it a consistent part of your routine.
Yes, so I concur with you. I'm one of those. If I don't get it done in the morning, it keeps getting procrastinated. And then, the guilt arrives. Oh gosh, now I'm tired. And I really don't feel like doing it. And then, oh, I wish I could have done it in the morning. And the vicious cycle continues. So yeah, that's very true. What about, when you mentioned about short, consistent movement versus thinking about that I need to get some intense training? Why are those short phases, or nowadays it's called as exercise snacks, more important rather than only focusing on time where you can incorporate intense training?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to say about this one. Part of it is the physical benefits and part of it is like mindset. So physically, I think you probably know this study better than me, but I feel like there's a study about diabetes in particular where I think it's 10 minutes of moderately vigorous activity every day will give you benefit in terms of long-term, decrease your risk of diabetes and other cardiovascular disease. So as little as 10 minutes of running every day, which is not all that much. But my reason for this one, I love the power of consistency. And if you have something that is very doable, like I said, I started with 5 or 10 minutes around the block, and I felt like, everybody has 5 minutes. I mean, we spend 5 minutes waiting in line at Starbucks, and you spend much more than 5 minutes scrolling on your phone. But take those 5 minutes and walk around the block or get some vigorous exercise, and you're much more likely to do that again because it doesn't feel like this insurmountable mountain. Like, oh, I'm just going to go out for an hour. Like an hour feels like a lot if you're not used to that. So if you start with something small and then you get consistent with it, it takes our brain and our body about 3 weeks of a consistent routine to really feel like, okay, now this is a part of what I do. And at first, you feel like you have to really make yourself tie on your sneakers. But after a couple of weeks of this, it feels like, oh, that's my default setting. Like this is what I do now. And it doesn't take that long, but 3 weeks is, it's a good chunk of time to commit to. So I have much more luck and success when people do small bits consistently rather than trying to commit to something like an hour 3 times a week. It just doesn't often get done.
Yeah, yeah. This actually answered even our last rapid fire where, we talked when we asked about the adults or men and women, how do they incorporate that in a packed workday? And you simplified it just by breaking it down into like those short bits of even 5 minutes. So how do we start? Now you're coaching individuals to run. If you can break it down for me as to why running is important number one, for anyone. Is it for everyone? Number two, and it could be short answers. So, why is it important? Is it for everyone? And then we come into, how do you coach and how does it look like if someone would benefit from running but has no idea how to start, where to start from?
Okay. Okay. We'll go one at a time. You're going to have to remind me of the other ones. Okay. So, why running? Okay. I will give first like the science, like textbook answer, and then I will tell you what my runners tell me. So, by the science and the medicine, running has wonderful benefits, and not just cardiovascular. Like everyone really goes to those first. So it lowers our risk of heart disease and high blood pressure and lowers our risk of diabetes. And there are neurological benefits. It lowers our risk of Alzheimer's. And I would say all of these things are very wonderful on paper, but you can't always convince somebody with that. And so I like to point to what my people tell me and what runners say, which is that they have more energy, they're sleeping better, they have more patience with their partners and their colleagues at work. They have better bandwidth to take on, projects and have more creativity. Like it opens up so much more in their life because they feel better. And so I think, yeah, if you just stand at the finish line of a race and interview a couple of people, you will get a wide range of answers. But I think that it really helps both physically and mentally and helps with rates of anxiety and depression. Like runners are tend to be very happy, joyful people.
All right. Why does everyone need to run? Not why, but does everyone need to run? Go get into running.
I don't think everyone needs to run, but what I would like to say is that it is a sport that is available to everyone if you want it. And so I have a lot of people who tell me they find out what I do and they say, "Oh, that's really great, but I don't run." Or like, "Oh, that's really great. I would never do that." And I would just say, stay curious and try it. Like, I would just urge you to give it a try because it might be something that you think you can't do, but actually, when you give it a try and try it in a different way, you might actually enjoy it. So, I don't think everyone needs to run. I would encourage everyone to find what your movement prescription looks like for you and what you really like to do. And if you are, you're a brisk walker, I have a lot of friends and family and athletes who love walking. And so, what I would say to the brisk walkers out there is if you want to give running a try, an easy way to do it is we call it the mailbox technique, but it's like using a run walk interval. So when you're out on your walk, you can take a little jog between mailboxes. And people get very funny and they're like, do we live in the city or do we live in the country? And it's like a mile between the mailbox. I mean, just a couple of seconds, like, 10 to 15 seconds of jogging. So you're walking for maybe 5, 10 minutes, you feel warmed up, and then you say, okay, I'm going to jog between these next mailboxes. And then you take a few minutes to recover, let your heart rate come back down, and then you just do it again. And that's a very simple way to do a run walk interval. And I say if you do a little bit of running, you're a runner. So there you go.
I can do that. Yes. Okay. So you're trying to convince me, and I think I'm getting convinced. All right. So, so this is, like you mentioned, two things. One, why it's beneficial, both clinical experience, sorry, not clinical experience, but coaching experience and the scientific data that we have. And, again, you just modified this where we talked about short, consistent movements. You gave us another way of looking at it was the mailbox. What is it called again? Mailbox what?
Oh, it's not official. We just call it the mailbox technique. But I made that up.
Mailbox technique. Okay, it is official, by the way. You can you can trademark it. And now, if someone is thinking that okay, I think I can give this a try. Age is not a barrier, and you've given us some starting points. But where are there are a lot of mental obstacles, to build momentum. You talked about 21 days or the 3 weeks where we have to be consistent until it becomes a habit. What are the first few very, very important things? Someone's ready to run, they have their sneakers, they have the place, they have the time. So, what are the next few steps that you would encourage someone or teach someone, coach someone as they're starting their journey into running?
Yeah, I think let me give you at least, we'll do three. The first one I would say is remember your why and write that down in a place where you can see it. And you may need a couple of minutes to think of what that is. Like sometimes people will say, oh, well, I want to run to feel healthy, or I want to run and they put down, a race goal, or, I want to run a certain distance. I would just encourage you to think a little bit more about it. Give yourself like 5 minutes of quiet time and journal if you like that, or just think quietly why you want to start this new routine and write it down and put it in a place where you can see it, maybe on your nightstand or in the bathroom, like where you brush your teeth, or by your front door or your running sneakers, so that you have that reminder as you're tying on your sneakers why you're going out the door. I think that is an important step that we sometimes skip because we're always going to the how to. And so I would just encourage you to think about your why for doing it. That's the first one. The second thing would be to start low and go slow. So, one of the biggest mistakes I see with runners, newer runners and beginner runners, as well as experienced runners, is that we are all trying to go too far and too fast, like too quickly. We're all in a hurry. And so I think that's part of it. Like you're trying to fit in this workout in an already very busy day. And so I have a technique I'm going to talk about. It's called the level of effort scale. And this is really easy. You don't need any fancy equipment. You don't need an app or, your Apple Watch or a Garmin watch, or you don't have to buy anything fancy. You can run using a level of effort scale. So we think about it like the pain scale, like 1 to 10. 1 would be brisk walking. 10 would be a bear is chasing you. Okay. And you're huffing and puffing running away from the bear. I would encourage you to start. You want to run at a level of effort of like a 2 to 3 out of 10. And what that feels like in real life would be if we were jogging together, we could carry on a conversation. Maybe not as easy as we're talking right now, but you don't want to be so out of breath that you can't carry on the conversation. And so that's a way to be honest with yourself without looking at any numbers or any pace or worrying, am I going fast enough or not? It's really based on your own, where you're starting from and your cardiovascular system, and it's a nice personalized way to do it. So start low, go slow. The level of effort scale is my way to help you go slower. And then by starting low, I would say if you're coming from the couch, you can't go wrong trying 5 or 10 minutes at a time. You don't have to go out there for an hour. You can work your way up. And I think that has a better chance for you to stick with it and stay consistent. And then the third thing I'll say, there are a lot of obstacles, as you were alluding to. I think time is probably the biggest one. I think you asked me that in the rapid fire about, the biggest obstacle being like busyness. I think it is. I think it is for a lot of us. And so my tip, and I think, attaching it to something you already do, if you can attach it to your morning routine somehow, or if you are a person who likes to walk at lunchtime, I don't, depending on what you do, you may get a break at lunch where you're able to go outside and take a walk. I would try to attach it to something you already do because you have more of a chance of sticking with it. So those are a couple of examples, but I do think busyness and time is probably one of our biggest obstacles.
Yes, yeah. Can you share, like, who's been, say, your youngest or the oldest student who started as a beginner, had no idea, and could you walk us through, like, how does that training or coaching looks like?
Yeah, yeah. I have many stories. I've coached, all age ranges. I've coached, teenagers all the way up to people in their 70s. But I would say, the average age is probably women in their late 30s and 40s. That's probably my average. So I had a lady who reached out to me. This is probably 2021. And she was starting from the couch and she wanted to do essentially like a couch to 5K program. And so I had a program back then, it's called Ready, Set, Run. It was like my beginner program. And so she joined that program and we went through, I mean, it was an 8-week program. We went through my version of Couch to 5K using this really start low, go slow, talking through all the obstacles and having, weekly meetings so we had some accountability. So she ran the first 5K and then stuck with it, worked her way up. 2 years ago, she reached out to me. So now that was 2 years later, still running. Her son had started running, and the two of them wanted to run their first half marathon together. And so we did a training cycle for a half marathon. She did that with her son. Last year, they want to run the same race and get faster, so we did some speed work. They both got a personal record, and her son really, oh my goodness, he beat his time by, I think, over 20 minutes, and then he ended up joining the cross country team with his high school. So that's just, but that took, we started working together 2021, so it takes time, but I think the best part of the story is that she started running back then with her son, and now, her daughter and her husband are also doing some shorter distance races. So the whole family came along for the ride and everybody is still running. So that's the nice part about this.
I wanted to get into or have a feel of, and especially for the audience, to the listeners, as to what it feels like to have a coach. And especially, so say if I was your student and you were coaching me virtually, and someone who I work out pretty good with brisk walks or even power walks and hikes. But like I said, I wouldn't want to run. But say if I'm starting with you, how does that coaching look like? Like, how are you in my head all the time as a coach, right? Like, what's that? What does that feel like? How is that adding on to the inspiration or motivation that you pass on to your clients or your students?
Well, I think the important thing to say is that I am a kind and gentle coach. Like I do offer motivation and accountability, but I will help you, I will hold your hand to get there. So if that is what resonates with you, we would be a good fit for each other. Like I know I'm not for everyone and some people need someone who's a little more stern perhaps, but that's just not who I am. So what we do is I have a long questionnaire, like a new athlete questionnaire. So I figure out where are you starting from and where do you want to go? And sometimes people don't always know, they might have like an idea, like I want to run that first 5K, or I've always wanted to run a half marathon, something like that. But sometimes people say, I just would like to get into a consistent routine. And that's a perfect enough goal to start with. So we fill out this questionnaire, figure out where you're starting from, where you want to go. I have an app that it's called Final Surge. And so I put a training plan based on your goals and your schedule, and you kind of give me the parameters. You say like, "Hey, I would like to run 3 days a week. These days are best. This is how much time I have." So it's a custom plan based on your schedule. You kind of give me the input. And then we communicate back and forth in the app. So, you do your run. I'm mostly interested in things like how did it feel? What was your level of effort? Did it feel good? Did it feel like a slog? And then we think about all of the other things that are happening in your life. So we've got running here and we look at the training plan, but then when we zoom out, how is sleep and stress and your job and nutrition, and are you doing strength training? So there's a lot of other things happening in the in the background, and we spend once a month I do a coaching call and we pick usually one of those other topics. So I'm rarely I have a friend who jokes and says that my tagline should be it's not about the running, and it's very true. So it's about the running, but then
I know, the entire lifestyle. Yes. Wow.
so that's how we go, and we just go month by month, and so I would say that the majority of my people have a race that they're working toward or like a distance that they're working toward. And so we have that as this goal, in however many months in the future, and we're working toward that. But along the way, we're also talking about the rest of life and managing stress and learning some mindfulness techniques and mindset strategy. So that's what, yeah, I hope that helps a little bit.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I mean, I don't know anyone who coaches that much. And especially like you coach everyone like nationally. Yes, people can see you in person. But that's amazing because one is the convenience, right? So app that I could reach out to the coach for accountability. And then the second thing is it's not just about, okay, you've run or these many minutes or not just those parameters. But it's also, how are you amplifying the other categories of your life because that's going to help. That's going to help us with the results. How does someone get to know you? Like, say, if I had to, like, you're in Northeast, but our audience are patients who are listening, or even the listeners, if they're in California, how do you time it? Like with the availability, the coaching call, how is that possible? Or if you've had any clients from the West Coast?
Yeah, actually, the example of the athlete I was giving, she lives in California. Maybe that's why I thought of her immediately when you asked me that. But we,
Or are they sending you pictures? Like, is there? I think there is some way of some confidence and some trust that is being built, right? When they're sharing with you in terms of the other aspects of their lives.
yeah, yeah, anyone can sign up, and we do like a call to get to know each other. Because again, it's hard for me too. I wouldn't hire a stranger off of the internet. I mean, there have been people who found me and we talked and they said sure, but I think that it would be good to talk and see if we are good fit for each other. So on my website, there's a way to just schedule a call and we do sort of a meet and greet and talk through your goals and whether or not, we would be a good fit and if I can help you get where you want to go. And then we do the coaching calls over Zoom. And I make my schedule so I'm working part-time as a pediatrician, so usually those days are my doctor days, and the other days are my run coach days, and I have good availability in terms of times, and I just leave the calendar open, and you sign up for a call when the time is good for both of us, and that's how I do it with, people on the other coast.
Yeah, impressive. You also incorporated in when you're talking about the mindfulness and when it comes to like the metabolic health or the endocrinology practice that we have when you're looking at fitness or just some form of movement exercise. One of the biggest challenges is that It's something similar to the resolution. New Year's resolution, great. First 6 months, first 4 months are great. And then something happens in summer, people are traveling, get busier, and then comes the fall and the holidays. Oh, let me start again. But I feel like everyone needs a coach in whatever activity, movement they're learning or they're trying to. Because you pointed out this very beautiful message of the slow aspect of it, like going slow, starting slow and going slow, because that will help with sustainability. That will help with, a larger transformation, a longer term, long end game, longer term results rather than just these short bursts of feeling good, but then getting back to the old habits. So there's a lot of things that you're talking about in terms of transformation. If that's what I can see and feel in your coaching, rather than, okay, here is our goal to, run the 5K and then you're done. But it's a lot of transformation that is happening because you're touching every aspect of their lives. And you being a physician, right? So that also adds on to understand that, okay, this is your health problem or this is some of your musculoskeletal issues. So how we can carve that out and still work on the activity aspect of it. You're encouraging me. I'm thinking about it. My only obstacle is that I just don't enjoy it. That's all. It's nothing to do with aches and pains. I just don't enjoy it. But I'm taking the tip of the mailbox technique.
Yeah, yeah.
The mailboxes around, and yeah, just those short bursts and how I feel. And I'll definitely share with you offline as to how that goes. One more thing was, you talked about that you're also asking them that are they involved in some form of resistance training or something else beyond running. Why is that important?
Yeah, so I like to ask my athletes if there are other sports or other kinds of movement that they like to do, because I don't like want to eliminate something that you already like to do. So if you tell me you love to swim and you play tennis once a week, we don't want to, throw all of those out while we add running. Usually the biggest factor is time and how do we juggle all of that. But strength training is very important for a variety of reasons. But for runners especially, I had a lovely physical therapist who I worked with a long time ago. His name is Dan. And when I saw him, he made me laugh because he said, Michelle, runners only like to run. And I know what he means. A lot of runners do not like to do strength training. And I don't really love it either. I feel like it's a necessity to do it to stay injury free and to keep my bones strong. But, and I do notice a difference when I don't strength train. And yeah, race performance definitely goes down, injury risk definitely goes up. So and again, with the strength training, just a little bit. It's not like you have to go crazy and do it 5 times a week. But if you can get into a consistent routine of doing it once or twice a week, if you like it, by all means, you can do more. But just having that baseline minimum where we have enough where we're keeping ourselves out of the woods in terms of injuries, because a lot of runners end up loving running and they do it all the time and they don't want to do anything else, and sometimes they can end up injured. So, yeah.
Yeah, great point here that you mentioned. So yeah, you're making it versatile, but also not losing the activity, the movement that you enjoy and what is needed or necessary. So, Dr. Michelle, you've inspired us. You made me, pretty much thinking about that. Okay, this is not a big deal. I could enjoy it. And just simple steps on how to start. And it is really going to be transformational either way with the activity exercise. I love that you coach and then you are available for coaching virtually. I feel like so many of us can benefit from that. So, if you can share what's the website? How could we reach you, or how could the audience of the listeners reach you? And any of your social media handles, any of your emails, please share that along.
Yeah. Probably the easiest place if you're on social media. I'm pretty active on Instagram. So the handle is at mindful.marathon. And then everything else you can find on the website, which is mindful-marathon.com. And I also have a podcast. It's called the Mindful Marathon Podcast. And so that might be a good place to start if you're kind of like, okay, this piqued my interest. I would like to hear more. Start over there, and there's a lot of episodes geared toward beginner and newer runners, and a lot of interviews with other physicians and experts. And yeah, we talk all things movement. It's not solely about running, but a lot about running.
Yeah, nice. I think that's going to be one of our, resources now for our patients. So thank you so much. This is something I feel like you're doing. It's niche, but it is so very needed. And coming that from an expert physician is like a gemstone here that we found. I really appreciate you sharing your tips today. Thank you, Dr. Michelle.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.